Hi, I'm Deb Miller. I'm the director of the Public Management Center at the University of Kansas. I'm pleased to introduce this webinar series. We've missed engaging with you live and in person. Who knew something so common could now feel so precious and valued? Though not live and in person, we hope these webinars will provide you with a convenient outlet to continue learning, and in this now daily virtual way, connecting with other public sector professionals. Because they are pre-recorded, you can view the webinars as your schedule allows, share them with others if you choose, and listen to key points more than once. Each of our speakers has offered to make themselves available to answer your questions. If you have questions, please leave them in the chat or in the comments below. We will either connect you with the presenter or respond to you with an answer. Here at the PMC, we believe that public service lies at the heart of democracy. During these strange, uncertain times, you are doing democracy in ways you never imagined and finding workarounds you never expected to need. We salute you and hope that in some small way, we can support and assist you in your work.
Margaret Weisbrod Morris is an artist, arts administrator, and advocate focused on the strategic design and advancement of cultural programs. Working at the crossroads of art, education, and creative economies, she is an active advocate for creativity in the workforce and the use of art as an educational tool. At the Lawrence Art Center, where she is Chief Executive Officer, her attention is on developing diverse, multidisciplinary teams who focus on innovation, decisive growth, collaborative partnerships, and social impact. As an artist and educator, she is a veteran supporter of connecting the arts throughout the scope of academics, and was an early advocate of injecting the arts into STEM initiatives to form the STEM to STEAM movement. She presents her work in multiple forums and served as a panelist for the U.S. Department of Education and the National Endowment for the Arts. She is serving as a senior member and past chair of the National Arts Education Council for Americans for the Arts. Before moving to Kansas, Morris had a practice as an art therapist working across all 5 boroughs of New York City. Morris started her career working as a gallery assistant and as a prop artist for television. She holds a BFA from the University of Wisconsin-Madison and a master's degree from New York University.
Okay, thank you for having me here to talk. I am sharing some information that is really important to me, and it's information that I love to talk about. And I'm going to be sharing a lot of information in hopefully what is a short amount of time. So just know that this just touches the tip of the iceberg. And I will try not to go down any rabbit holes. So first of all, why are we even talking about art? Why are you here? Why am I here? Well, I think that this quote by Winston Churchill sums it up. He may or may not have actually said this, but I like it nonetheless because it goes really right to the core of what we're talking about. This is why I talk about art. This is where I come from, and really why I've chosen to spend my whole career in this field. You know, thousands of years from now, how are we going to remember our history? Through the art that's left behind, right? I've heard, especially recently, that the arts are humanity's bridge. I really like that concept because it's how we reach out to connect with each other and our history and also our present, what's happening in our present. It's how we connect with all of those things emotionally and intellectually. So this talk is to give you some information that people working outside of the arts don't always have access to, and to give you a picture of the industry and the ripples that are happening in the pond right now. So just brief introduction. You know, my history is I'm a painter and a printmaker and an art therapist, and I had a practice in New York City as an art therapist for 10 years. And you know, if there's one thing that you know about painters and art therapists is that we like metaphors. So I have a bit of a metaphor to kind of lead us through most of this presentation. So I'm going to start by framing this talk with the analogy, the beginning of this talk, with the analogy of a farm. Think of what a farm is. Think of how it works. You know, it's a place, there's equipment, there's supplies, there's farmers. That's like an arts organization. We plant things, we use our skills to make them grow. But what we're growing, we're not growing food, we're growing culture. So think of the programs that we give, like the classes, the dance classes, or the theater production, or the exhibition. Those are like seeds. We plant those seeds for a reason. We plant them to have social impact. That's what we're growing. That's the culture that we're growing. We're having an impact on the area around us. I'm going to talk about social impact and 4 areas of social impact that the arts and culture has great effect in. Education and workforce development, health and well-being, public welfare, and community development. So the first one I'm going to talk about is education and workforce development. This is my area, actually, arts education, art therapy. So I kind of nerd out in this area, but a lot, again, 30 years of research in about 4 slides here. So basically, if you practice an art form and you participate in arts education, it's going to improve so many things, and particularly in education, your academic and career success. So this is information that came out of a longitudinal study by Harvard and the National Endowment for the Arts. It was focused on youth at risk in urban environments, but the study was extended and they correlated these outcomes with across the board. And as the results came out and people were seeing these impacts, it drew the attention of corporate America and especially the conference board. So the conference board started looking into arts education and creativity and how it plays out in the workforce. The one I like about the most in this is 78% more likely to vote as an adult if youth who regularly engage in the arts. Employers, this is where came out of the conference board research that they were involved in. They actually surveyed the CEOs and actually HR people of Fortune 500 companies, and creativity is among the top 3 desired skills. Art study is ranked number 2 in desired qualification, like a background of being in theater or studying painting or dance. And 50% of the top executives in the United States credit the arts for their success. So I'll talk a little bit about health and wellness and how arts and culture impact our health and well-being. Again, this is a little bit of my area as an art therapist. And a lot of this came out of not the arts field, it came out of the medical field, these outcomes. So if you participate in an art form, it'll improve cognitive functioning, it improves immunity and cell function, your overall health status, and actually shortens recovery times, and just your overall sense of well-being. And basically, a lot of what if you look at this slide and see all these effects, it's actually very parallel to meditation. And so if you regularly meditate, it has a similar effect on your brain and your body as practicing an art form. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about public welfare, arts, and what the arts do in the public sphere. Everybody pretty much, I think, just gut feeling understands that the arts bring people together, right? So you go community theater, you go to see a theater production, or there's a festival downtown, a concert, right? Think of what, if that happens a lot in an area, what that does to civic life and to the people who live in that place. So studies show that arts contribute to safe communities. Places that are arts rich is what we call it, have lower rates of juvenile delinquency and truancy. They show, I think this is an interesting statistic, arts rich communities have 18% less serious crime and 14% fewer reports of abuse and neglect. And groups built around arts experiences score higher on trust, empathy, and tolerance. So think about an after-school arts program. So maybe a hip hop dance classes that meet in the school, or a group of people working on a mural together. It's that kind of art experience that they're talking about. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about community development, arts and culture, and community development. I think I'm going to just throw out a question for you to think about for a second. Where do you think developers look? What kind of areas do developers look at when they are looking for a place to develop? What is one of the key, actually it is the key thing that they look for. They look at where artists are living. They look at where artists are living. Artists are the very first and the highest indicator of an area that's gentrifying. So like it or lump it, that's real. And there's a reason for that. Because artists and art is deeply connected to economic growth. The arts are an economic driver. So there are cities that recognize this. City of Phoenix actually designated a cultural district, and they saw 105% tax increase in 3 years revenue. And this was not a tax increase, you know, like it wasn't, they didn't raise taxes. They were making money off of people who were going to that area, that cultural district, to do things and to spend money on tickets that have taxes, to park, to go out to eat. And that is, it's real. Also, like I said, having a cultural organization in a neighborhood has been shown to increase the nearby residential property values up to 20%. And if you look at the Lawrence Art Center in East Lawrence, that is a perfect example. Also, people who live in arts-rich communities, like I talked about before, you know, think about when people are going out to concerts and festivals and there's things like that happening. People are more engaged in their city, their neighborhood with each other. So they're in 2 times as likely to be civically engaged as neighborhoods that do not have art in them, or arts projects or arts organizations. People feel more connected and they feel more positive about their community. So, talked about social impact. Let's talk a little bit, I touched a little bit on the economic impact. Now this is straight up data from Americans for the Arts, which is they're the umbrella organization for everybody working in the arts. Like you know, there's all sorts, it's a very diverse field. You know, there's actors, there's dancers, there's painters, there's academics, there's teachers, all of that. Americans for the Arts is kind of the one that's all over, and they are the big data crunchers for our field. And they do something every couple of years called the Arts and Economic Prosperity Report. And basically what they do is they go into communities, they just literally get data, numbers from the city, and they crunch it and they come out with information about how the arts are impacting that particular community. And they'll do it for a community, and then they'll do it for a state. And then the nation. So that's what I'm gonna just, the most recent one was done 2 years ago, and actually Douglas County was included in it. So in the US, the arts are a huge business. It's 4.3 of our economy, which is a $166 billion business. 4.7 jobs, and this is all pre-COVID. We're gonna get to that. Almost 5 million jobs in the US, which accounts for 2% of all employees in the United States. That's actually bigger than construction, and it's pretty impressive. I know when I saw this, I was proud. Let me put it that way. In Kansas, Kansas is actually not a high on the list of businesses and employees in the arts. Where we have in Kansas, arts and cultural employees are 3% of the businesses. There were 21,000 employees. Douglas County, you know, not surprising. We're 5% of the businesses in Douglas County, and there are 247 employees, arts and cultural employees in the county. Not all of those are located in Lawrence. They're all over the county. We actually compare Douglas County, even though Kansas is not a terribly considered an arts-rich state, Douglas County compares with arts-rich counties nationally. So this little microcosm we have here is we're lucky. It's an arts-rich county nationally. And here's a little bit more information about Lawrence and Douglas County. So for every $1 spent on a cultural activity, like buying a ticket, let's say, participants, people who are buying the ticket, and then also the cultural organization who's producing it, for every $1 spent on that, $24.25 come into the local economy, which results in $1.25 million in local government revenue, $1.5 in state government revenue, and it injects $30.7 million into the economy each year. This is in Lawrence, Douglas County alone. So arts and culture in Lawrence and Douglas County, actually, like I said before, generates 2 times the amount as comparable places like, let's say, Columbia, Missouri, Manhattan, Kansas. I got to toot my horn here. Lawrence Art Center, we are one of the largest organizations in the state. Our employees actually account for 1% of creative industry employees in the entire state. And we're 60% of the creative industry employees in Douglas County alone. We are a private institution. We occupy a city building. They help us take care of just the bricks and mortar, foundation and walls. And then we take care of the rest. And we earn 50% through tickets and tuition and sales. And then we fundraise the rest. And we give back. This is an area we do a lot of focused fundraising on, is $120,000 to $150,000 we give out in financial aid every year. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of this place. So for us, this is what we generated in the local government revenue and state revenue. And then our impact alone as one institution in the area is $9 million total economic impact. So I did say that this was all pre-COVID. Guess what? COVID happened. And it has changed everything. Arts and culture is the second most affected industry in the country as a result of this pandemic after hospitality. First to close, last to open. We rely on, our business is interactive, social, experiential activities. That's our business. And because of this, the social distancing practice that is necessary to prevent the spread of COVID and preserve public health has really eradicated the entire industry at its roots, and it will have permanent effect. The most heavily hit in the arts, this is true for all arts, like galleries, dance schools, theater companies. The hardest hit are the performing arts. And this is happening worldwide. Cultural institutions worldwide are decimated and scrambling to figure out how we're going to handle this. Not just survive for now, but then also how are we going to rebuild, and what is that going to look like? So we have had to drastically modify operations across the board. I'm talking about the Lawrence Art Center here, but this is a general statement. 90% of the organizations in the United States closed immediately in response to the pandemic. And I mean closed meaning stopped operating, weren't producing things anymore. As of September, 15% of those have reopened. 20% plan to reopen in 2020, and 6% plan to reopen in 2021. So still small amount. What is that? Less than 50%. And 48% have no targeted plan for reopening. And 11% are admitting that they don't think that they're going to be able to reopen. I am proud to say that the Lawrence Art Center, we stayed open. We had to close our doors because of the pandemic, but we stayed operating. We kept pumping out, and kept people employed, and we kept pumping out programs. We were able to do that because we could use reserves. So we're like 46% of the organizations out there are using their reserves to stay open this year. 68% of organizations across the country have reduced staff, and only 2% have maintained their pre-COVID numbers. And I am also proud to say that the Lawrence Art Center is in that 2%. 62% of organizations report they will need to make additional reductions in staff in the next 3 months. Everybody, I mean, it says 96% here. I don't know a single organization, and I am on a couple national boards. I don't know a single organization that has not canceled programming. And almost everybody I know, if they haven't shut down, has changed how they're delivering their programs and services. So this is a pretty bleak picture. And one of the things that concerns me the most is those of us who've reopened are using reserves, and I'll talk a little bit about relief money that we've been able to get and what that's done, but that is a for now situation. And this kind of decimation in a field the recovery is gonna take a decade. And so what people are talking about is, how are we going to do this? And how are we gonna keep the doors open to rebuild and recover? Not a lot of answers right now. We're still figuring it out. Like I said, we are building this plane as we fly it. That's what I say. The staff here, I say that almost every day, almost every meeting, because people, so many times the answer is like, I don't know. What are we going to do? Let's figure it out. And we just have to we know we're building the plane as we fly it. We're going to make some mistakes, but it's part of reinventing an entire industry. That is what we are doing right now. Right now in the world, every arts organization, every museum, theater company, dance school, academic program, arts program is reinventing itself because we have to mitigate these health requirements. And if we don't do it, the other option is close. So it's kind of do or die. And some people have decided to close. So basically 3 out of 4 people, like what we're doing to stay open is going online. 90% of the organizations have reported, which this is totally the character of this field, is that 90% of organizations report that they're motivated to do this, use their reserves, keep things going because they're worried about their community's mental health and well-being, because we see that work every day, we feel it, and that's a lot of the reasons why we work in this field. And, you know, we bring the joy, and we need the joy now, and people need the joy now. So that's what's motivating the majority of the people. And I would say the 10% who didn't click that box on this survey, that 10%, their motivating factor is to keep people employed. What that does mean though, right now, because of just the conditions that are out there, most of us that are open, actually all of us that are open, are functioning at incredibly reduced business capacity. So we're, you know, somewhere between, it's really between 10 and 25%, depending on where you are and where your business is and who you're working with in your field. So a theater company is going to be much, much heavier hit than maybe a gallery, so, or a museum. So the Art Center, we are at 20% of our normal operations right now. So of course, globally, COVID happens, COVID leads to an economic crisis, right? So COVID plus the economic crash in our industry is resulting in something that people are calling the cultural crisis. This is actually came out of the UK, this term, but it's spreading amongst us all across the board. So the direct losses in the United States as of July was $13.5 billion in lost revenue, $11.2 billion lost spending in local economies, and $4.2 billion lost in government revenue. Over 120 people have had their jobs affected. And this is actually looking at people who are salaried. This is not talking about contract workers. And when you understand how the industry relies on contractors, think of a Broadway actor. They're a contractor for a show. That's why they have Actors Equity, a union, to look out for them. They are contractors. And so this number does not take those into consideration. I have a great friend, the executive director of the Theater Lawrence, Mary Doveton, explains it like this. It was, if you've seen Hamilton, if you have Disney Plus and you watched Hamilton, and you watched those, 18 pages of credits afterwards, not a single one of those people is employed right now. Not a single one. Broadway is dark through May 2021. There's no jobs. And because Broadway's dark, everybody's dark, look at the number lost in attendance nationwide. And before the CARES Act, just painting an extremely bleak picture, 1 in 3 arts organizations expected to close in the United States. So the indirect losses related to the cultural crisis, like the ripples in the pond, this is from the Brookings Institution, is $150 billion lost and 2.7 million jobs lost. And that is taking into account the industries that are connected to, and the arts are kind of they rely on the arts. So for instance, let's say, people build for theater, you build sets, right? And you need wood to build sets. And so if your theater is dark in the town that you live in, and you're the place that sells lumber, and the theater, the theater's not buying your stuff anymore, that's going to affect your business, right? So it's that. So in Kansas and Douglas County, again, Americans for the Arts has been really, really diligently staying on top of the numbers. Actually, we're probably due to get another report at the end of October. So in Kansas, 11.5 million lost in direct revenue, 253 in the entire economy of Kansas. 165 jobs have been affected, and that seems low to me, just because I think this was, that's a number that came from surveying, so it depends on who was responding to the survey. So just, that seems low to me. And in Douglas County, you can see where we're at. About 46 million lost in the local economy. So, there is relief money. There has been relief money. And like other businesses, it's not enough, but it has allowed us and others to keep our doors open. So in the CARES Act, there was direct money in the CARES Act for arts and culture. The National Endowment for the Arts received $75 million. The NEH, which is National Endowment for the Humanities, received $75 million. And the IMLS, which is the Institute for Museum and Library Studies, so that's museums mostly, and libraries, they got almost just under 14 million. And they were able to directly grant money out to people, and then, but each of those, about half of it, they directed out to state departments. So like in Kansas, that's the Kansas Creative Arts Industries Commission, and the Historical Society. Those two were handling the CARES Act money that was directly for arts and culture. And, in the state of Kansas, people, we were very well taken care of. We were taken care of by our Arts Commission and also our regional organization. But Kansas is actually received the 3rd lowest number of awards in the country directly from all of these institutions. So CARES Act money that we were able to get and be eligible for, and I do have to say, a lot of this was because arts and culture as an industry is not really talked about at a policy level or decision making levels. A lot of these programs we had to, we were like fitting a square peg into a round hole. So almost every organization I know of was able to get a PPP loan. Many of them did not make it into the first wave because nonprofits were kind of held aside in some areas, and there was a lot of confusion about that. And we were able to get in the first wave because we have an amazing bank that we work with. Then the EIDL loans, I don't know very many arts organizations that received an EIDL loan, which was the $10,000 in emergency support. This at the state level, there's the Spark funding, which is mostly towards direct public health things and cost and reimbursements for those costs, and then mostly school district distance learning reimbursement. So again, not a lot of eligibility for us there, very minimal eligibility. We were able to get like $4,000 to cover some of the additional PPE we needed in our building for employees. Mid-America Arts Alliance, which is this right here. They are a regional organization that helps support the arts organizations in 5 states, Texas, Arkansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Kansas. They received some CARES Act money and they re-granted it out in the form of $25,000 in operational support, no match required. We did receive one of those, which we were very happy to do. But these were the Mid-America Arts Alliance and the Kansas Creative Arts Industries Commission, which is the KCAIC here. They worked together to make sure that they weren't, you had to get one or the other. And then if you got a direct award from the NEA, it made you ineligible for any of these. So the great thing about Douglas County is that we have people who in Douglas County, our leaders, get it. They understand where we were at. They listened to us when we talked to them about it. They were deeply concerned when we explained the position the arts and culture are in across the world and then specifically here. And they made sure to help us be included in the CARES Act relief being dispersed in the county. And that came in the form of the small business economic relief portion of that and some of the PPE costs. So that has been a real godsend. And we applied for it as a sector. Art Center took the lead on one and the Watkins Museum took the lead on another application, and but we did it as a group. And there is no relief money from the city available to arts and culture that I know of. So, throw on top of all this, right? Social crisis, social revolution. Yeah, let's do that. But as we all know, I think it's been a long time coming. And arts and culture are kind of, we feel like we're kind of in the center of it. There is an organization called La Placa Cohen. They're a marketing and marketing research firm. And they regularly survey the field and develop a report called Culture Track, and it's basically looking at the state of the arts and culture industry in the United States, and then also the consumers and what are they, how are they changing? And they started to do this after September 11th. When September 11th happened, they were there. They were located downtown, New York City, Lower Manhattan, and they were like, "This is going to change the world as we know it." And so they said, we need to start looking at how this is going to affect how people do things and consume things. And so that's when it started. And of course they immediately responded to this crisis that we're seeing right now worldwide. So they surveyed the field it was a wide survey. But one of the pieces of it was about, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how are we doing with that? And not surprisingly, they found that arts and culture is a field that is overwhelmingly white, middle-aged, urban, and educated. It actually, from what, they didn't extrapolate this in the report, but it looks like we're probably one of the whitest industries in the United States, which was a shock, I think, to a lot of us working in the arts. So they also revealed in the consumers that there's a real representation gap. So people who are participating in this field are, older and, and it's like they're in their 30s to 80s. So of course, this has resulted in a lot of discussion. I know right now the Lawrence Art Center is undergoing cultural proficiency training. It is a wave happening across the country, even though it's kind of like our doors are closed, our staff is still here and willing. Let's do this, people. And so what we're really looking forward to in a lot of the conversations we're having is how do we serve our communities in equitable, authentic, and sustainable ways? And so these are just some of the things that people are looking at in their businesses right now. So how are we all adapting to this? What's going on right now? So, you know, artists, we are kind of trained for this. Adaptation is just another word for creativity. This is what we train for, right? So we're seeing this as kind of an opportunity almost to it's hard to reinvent yourself. It's risky. We're poor, but we're really strengthening ourselves. I mean, it's tough right now. And if I feel like I keep saying this, if we can make it through this, we're going to be stronger and better, and we're going to be more diverse, and we're going to be able and more accessible, specifically because it's making us exercise our digital muscles. I keep saying it's kind of like the universe kicked our butt down the road that we should have been going and weren't. And now we have to. So there's some really exciting things going on in the art world right now. So this one, bespoke experiences, is things. For example, there's a theater company. They're doing Zoom plays, so plays over Zoom. And what happens is they use the breakout rooms. You buy your ticket, you go into the Zoom experience, and then you're in a breakout room with a single actor, a single ticket holder, and they're doing a performance. So it's like you get this one-on-one experience. I just learned about that one the other day. I thought it was really interesting. So there's just a ton of stuff going on. Porch concerts. We're doing a lot of drive-up, drive-in concerts and theater performances. It's just, there's some cool things happening. The great thing about it, silver linings, is that we're actually widening our audiences. So look at the pre-pandemic, we were able to track zip codes in states and get all data on where people are coming from. And we've actually, even though we have less people doing it, people are coming from more places. We even had this summer, we had people participating from other countries. We had a young person from Ghana in our theater program, a person from Germany in our theater program, and we had a young person from Mexico City taking one of our visual arts classes. It's kind of cool. And also, we know it's making us more accessible. So, you know, people who have been unable to come into the building or been able to participate for, you know, on site before are able to do it now. And also, frankly, it's the prices have dropped. Doesn't mean the cost of producing it has dropped, but what the market is that people don't want to pay a whole lot. They don't want to pay the same for an in-person class as a virtual class. So, you know, we're meeting our market where it's at. The other really great thing, like I said, we applied for this CARES Act money as a sector. A lot of groups nationwide who were competing, you know, competing productions, competing for donors. It's amazing how silly that seems right now when the stakes are higher. So the whole field has become very unified around all of this, around staying healthy, around surviving this economically, and about becoming more diverse. Let the rubber hit the road on that right now, so that we can come out of this better, stronger, and more versatile. And I'm going to end with this quote: "Like 'em or lump 'em, Rahm Emanuel, this is very appropriate for right now. Never let a crisis go to waste. It's an opportunity to do things you thought you couldn't before." And I know we all can. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you guys listening and your time. And I wish you all health and safety and well-being. Thank you.